There's even a curfew in Melbourne, an 8 p.m. curfew, that Andrews once claimed was made on the best advice, best medical advice. But like so much of this man now says, it's rubbish. His chief health officer said, this curfew wasn't my idea.
Yeah, I was consulted on it, but it was a separate decision-making pathway.
And today, Andrews Police Chief said this curfew wasn't something he'd asked for either.
Were police consulted about the introduction of a curfew?
No.
Were you at no stage?
No. The reality is I was never consulted. I've made inquiries to determine if anyone within the organisation was briefed on the matter, and as best as I can work out, our policy area was provided a copy of the proposed guidelines for our information a couple of hours before they were signed off.
And still this mendacious Premier cannot remember, or confess to, whose idea it actually was to impose an unprecedented curfew on Australia's second biggest city and turn Victoria into what looks like a police state.
Decisions are made by groups of people, and I can't necessarily pinpoint for you the exact individual and the exact moment that it was suggested that we put a curfew on. And what I'm saying to you is anyone who is displeased with that or doesn't think that's a proportionate measure, well, that's a decision that I've made.
Now, what this Premier has done, ruling by emergency decree, banning public protests, cancelling Parliament, giving police the power to enter homes without a warrant, letting them chase off people simply sitting in the sun. That should be the horror of every single person of the left, the shame of the Labor Party. What is done would be howled down by the left if a Tony Abbott had done it. But let me now show you scenes from Melbourne this week and ask you, if Victoria today was under the rule of some conquering power, some dictator, would it look any different to what we now see every day? To police arresting a woman in her pyjamas in front of her children simply for promoting a protest on social media, or a man having his door smashed in by police after he said he'd go see a protest, or a grandmother threatened with arrest for simply sitting on a park bench, with police then even stealing the phone of her companion after she tried to film them. You even now have a law professor telling us she had gone to the shops for groceries, bought a takeaway coffee, stopped in the street just for a moment to drink it, and got told off by the police for pausing. And this law professor then later said she was too scared to protest. A law professor too scared in Victoria to assert her rights. What chance then that these women sitting on a park bench would dare to protest at police warning them to move on? Who are these women even endangering in the open air? But one pregnant woman today would no longer be pushed around.
So you're allowed to be in a park, but you can't sit in a park at all?
You can only be out of your house for one of the 4 reasons. That's one of those would be exercise. Sitting in a park is not one of the 4 reasons.
So I'm pregnant, and obviously my exercise is limited. Like, I don't know if because I have to walk, I'm now puffed out because I'm 38 weeks pregnant.
I understand.
So even I can't sit in a park. Is that right?
You can only be out for one of the 4 reasons.
So I just confirmed that, yes or no, I can't sit in a park. As a pregnant woman, I cannot sit in a park?
You can only be out for one of the 4 reasons.
Who was that woman endangering sitting alone in the open air on a park bench? No wonder that soldier you saw in the background was so embarrassed he had to stand away, look away, the other way. Good on him. A little conscience. Have Victorians perhaps finally had enough of dictator Dan and his rule by fear? Is that why the internet today is rife with rumours that Andrews will be dumped, or is that just wishful thinking? I am a law-abiding man. I abide even by laws I think are wrong. But this is enough. This is sinister. This is not my Australia. Premiers like Palaszczuk, premiers like Daniel Andrews, they seem to have forgotten that they are there to serve, not to rule. They are there to preserve our freedoms, not to destroy them, and make us feel a fear of police when we walk down the street. They are blind and deaf to the harms that they cause, to the tears of people they are there to protect. Shame on them. And shame on anyone who sits by and says nothing.